take you back to the situation in Afghanistan. Obviously, a lot of talk this morning about the bespoke resettlement plan that Boris Johnson has announced, but we don't have the details on exactly what that will mean. We're now joined by the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab, who will hopefully give us more details. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us this morning. Obviously, we're seeing these desperate, chaotic, heartbreaking situation in Kabul, the pictures of people clinging to planes because they are so desperate to get out of the situation. We have announced this resettlement plan. Can you give us more details on how many people we will be able to save?
Good morning, Charlotte. Well, look, the three tracks, if you like, to what we're doing with evacuation and people that want to leave the country is, first of all, first priority, getting our nationals out. We saw 150 come on Sunday from flights out of Kabul. And as we secure the situation at the airport, that will increase dramatically. Secondly, those that have served us, Afghan nationals who have served us. And thirdly, the asylum route. Just to say on the conditions on the ground, very harrowing pictures that we saw yesterday. But with the increase in the 600 extra UK forces on the ground and the ramping up of the US presence, we've got a much more stable situation at the airport today. That will allow us to increase those two tracks I mentioned. On asylum, of course, we have an asylum route into the UK, but as we've done previously in other cases like Syria, we are working up the details and will announce them in due course, the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, of exactly how that works. But we will do something bespoke for Afghans. We're a big-hearted nation. You have a Foreign Secretary and a Home Secretary who are the children of refugees, and we will do right by the people of Afghanistan.
But you've been accused of completely failing to live up to your duty of care. I spoke to Stephen Kinnock earlier on. He said 3 years ago, the Defence Select Committee pointed out translators and interpreters who'd been helping the British Army were not being properly treated. We have a moral duty to protect these people, and that hasn't happened. Why have we got to a situation where we haven't been helping these people and they're now, in desperation, fleeing to the airport, scared that they're going to lose their lives?
I'm sorry, that's not right. That's just not factually accurate. First of all, those fleeing to the airport, the rush to the door, will be all sorts of people. They certainly won't be predominantly the Afghans who've worked for us. Secondly, we have already evacuated 3,300 Afghan staff of the UK government and their families. No country has done better. So let's just be clear, but there are still many more that we want to evacuate. Our first priority will be British nationals and those who have served us so loyally and therefore at risk. But it's just not correct to say that we're just starting this either now or that we haven't already achieved a significant amount. But as you'll have seen, precisely because of the scenes that you described, it depends on securing the position at the airport and having stable enough conditions that we can get flights in and out.
But that's part of the planning, isn't it? I mean, so you sound like you're happy with the way things are going. I mean, how will we... What, you don't even sound particularly surprised that we're in this situation. I mean, you were on holiday, so I guess you didn't see it coming. Otherwise, if you knew the situation like this, you would have been here. How did it take everybody so unawares, something that we knew was coming?
Well, we didn't know it was coming, and I'm not happy about it. And
why didn't you know it was coming? Why didn't you know that the Taliban were going to take over in this way? What's gone wrong? Do you blame your intelligence? Do you blame, you know, America? We've heard from Marines who say that we've just had to do a terrible deal that America did, that Trump forged and Biden has continued with. I mean, why has it gone so badly wrong? We've been looking at photographs this morning of interpreters that were working with the British that are now dead. You know, how could we be in this situation? Because I'm sure, Mr. Raab, you're not pleased with this.
Okay, I don't think there's anything. I think it's Kay there. I don't think there's anything I've said which suggests I'm pleased with it. I don't know quite why you would say that.
But what I'm trying to... You said, no, that's not true, and this is happening, and what we're doing, and no country is doing better. It started to build a picture of a minister that was feeling like this process was going well, whereas for us here, for the relatives of those troops who've lost their lives, for troops that have injured, we're watching a country fall into the hands of a force that we have no reason to have believed has changed from 20 years ago. We have no reason to think this country is going to be any less a ground for breeding terrorism to threaten our shores. And people who've worked with us, our forces, are losing their lives or in hiding.
So first of all I'm doing is correcting the factually inaccurate things you're putting to me. But look, we're not happy about this situation. It wasn't foreseen. Both the Taliban advances, but also the collapse of the Afghan forces was not something any country predicted. What I'm trying to give you the sense of is how we deal with it now. And why, once we've seen what we've seen, how we've responded at pace, decisively. And I absolutely have in my forefront of my mind the blood, sweat and tears, the loss of life of our forces over 20 years. So we've got the evacuation effort, critically important. We're going to say something further beyond British nationals, Afghans who have worked for the UK on the bespoke asylum arrangements that we'll have for Afghanistan. We also need to just make sure that the gains that those brave British forces have secured over 20 years, no attacks from Afghanistan by terrorist groups, 10 million more children in education who didn't see a school book before, 8 million more landmines cleared. How do we, with this new reality, moderate the Taliban so we don't lose all those gains?
Can I just pick up? Sorry, at this stage, can I just pick up when you say about factually accurate? Because actually, when you're saying about factually accurate, it is factually accurate, isn't it, that we haven't given assistance in enough numbers to those people who've worked for us so far, to the interpreters. It's been a difficult situation for them over the years trying to come here when they have the right to come here. It's also factually accurate to say that we've seen those scenes of the airport being stormed. You don't know who are in those crowds of people that are desperately trying to get on aeroplanes, do you?
So, Charlotte, let me answer both of those. The point I'm making is we can't get more people out over and above the 3,300 until we secure the airport. But so far, every country who have had Afghans working for them faced this situation. No one has done better. We've announced this, the new scheme in April. So it's been going since April, 3,300 Afghan workers and their staff. In terms of the scenes at the airport, they're harrowing, they're distressing, they're deeply uncomfortable. But also, if we're going to secure the evacuation, we need to secure the airfield. And what I was just doing is updating you, and I had a situation update at 6 in the morning on the situation at the airfield. It is now more stable, more secure, because we've put in 600 extra UK forces, because thousands more US personnel are going in, and that will allow us to ramp up further in the days ahead. So we know that over the coming 24 hours, there'll be flights taking hundreds more, both British nationals and Afghans who've worked for us. So we're dealing with the situation on the ground, which is precarious.
We have an update for you, Mr. Raab. We've spoken to people who say the reason why there aren't the numbers at the airport is they're too scared to make it to the airport because it's too dangerous for them. You spoke about the pride in schools for girls, which is an enormous pride who's those that serve there and in many cases hand-built the schools here in the UK. But there's very significant fear that that's not going to last. Already, female workers in banks have been removed from their jobs and told that they will be replaced by men. Why did we not see this coming? And what can we feel about our legacy there?
Well, first of all, in terms of the legacy, as I mentioned, I think we achieved a huge amount over the last 20 years. For example...
No, it's not going to be unpicked because of the deal that we signed up to with America. We didn't get guarantees that that's not going to be unpicked, did we?
You're not allowing me to answer the questions that I think are perfectly reasonable. Can I just give you the answer that I see to this? We have made significant gains. The number of women dying in childbirth or pregnancy is down by close to a half. But you're right to say, how do we, with the Taliban, consolidate and try and exercise some moderating influence? Let's be honest, that is going to be very, very difficult. Taliban have militarily secured control. So we need to use every other lever that we've got. Sanctions, economic measures, the diplomacy. We'll need a contact group I believe, of not just like-minded Western countries, but countries with direct influence, even if we find it challenging dealing with them. The permanent members of the Security Council, including China and Russia, will need to be, I think, part of the solution. So it's not going to be easy. The Taliban, since 2020, have been saying that, pursuant to the agreement done with the US under the previous US administration, that they will make a range of commitments. Now, the Taliban have never kept a promise so far, but I think given that they have those set of undertakings, we must test it and make sure that there's a cost if they don't live up to those responsibilities. It is going to be exceptionally challenging, but that is already what we're looking to do, and to try and galvanise some international action with that in mind.
But why did you not support Ben Wallace, who told us that he was pushing for that before the withdrawal? Why did you not support the UK taking a stronger stance? Why did the Foreign Office not support the Defence Secretary in that?
Sorry, I'm not put the precise claim to me. The Foreign Office and I have not supported what the Defence Secretary.
Ben Wallace said he was pushing and pushing and pushing for Britain to take a stronger position, to not go along with the US. He didn't mention you as somebody that supported him in that. He mentioned that he was a lone voice, as it were. He implied he was a lone voice.
I think the UK has been... Look, if you look at the decision of the US, once it was clear that they were going to withdraw, we argued, Ben and I and the Prime Minister, for a conditions-based approach rather than just saying we'll go out at a certain point of time. But we'd always said, as allies in NATO, we'd go in together, we'd adjust together, we'd come out together. And the US were clear. I think if anyone wants to criticise what the government has done and say we should have stayed without the Americans, we looked at all the contingencies, and I just don't think it was feasible. But if someone does want to argue that, and certainly there's no difference between my cabinet colleagues and I on this, they need to explain how many extra UK forces that they would be willing to put in place. So we have to deal with the situation on the ground as it is. I don't like it, but we've got to deal with the cards as they're dealt, and that means we've got to deal with the situation now and think what are the levers we've got, not as strong as they've been in the past with a military presence, to influence or at least moderate the Taliban. And that means working with India. It means working and trying to bring in China, which is very nervous about its neighbour. It means trying to talk to the Pakistanis. I spoke on Sunday to the Pakistani Foreign Minister, and I think, again, as I said, a contact group will probably be important. But it won't be easy. But we still have the scope, the opportunity to try and moderate and positively influence what comes next, and hold the Taliban to account for what they're saying they're willing to do next.
OK, well, let's hope that that's successful, because there are a lot of people who have, big worries about what's going to happen in the route forward. But Dominic Raab, we have to leave it there. Thanks very much for your time this morning.
Very good to speak to you this morning. Thank you.